Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I am here to do my September and October reading wrap up. So I guess kind of like an autumnal wrap up for you guys today. But yeah, I had a pretty good reading month in September. October was a little bit more average, probably didn't get as much read. But yeah, I'm going to tell you all about them now. So I've been trying to do a few rereads this year, in particular at least one reread a month. And my reread for September was Foster by Keegan, and this is a beautiful short novella set around, I think it's around like the 80s in Ireland, and we are looking at a young girl called Kate who's sent to kind of a distant relative of her mother's for the summer to be kind of fostered for the summer because her mother and father are due another baby. They aren't very well off, and they basically kind of just need one of their daughters out from underfoot, and they send Kate off. And Kate is quite quiet, she's not very confident, and she's a little girl who kind of is always kind of blends into the background. And in this new home where she's like the only child, she kind of gets the undivided kind of love and attention that she's never had before, and you just see her blossom, and it is just the most beautiful, heartwarming, at the same time heartbreaking story. This beautiful look at kind of this picture perfect rural summer for this girl she probably will never forget, and the relationships she forms with the people, I think it's Mr. and Mrs. Kidsla, who she goes to, is just absolutely beautiful, and I really recommend this book. It's an easy 5 stars for me. The last page of this book, particularly the last line in this book, and also the last scene in the movie The Quiet Girl, or Uncommon Tune, which is the movie adaptation of this book, which is also mostly in Irish, which is absolutely gorgeous. 100% recommend, and always just makes me want to burst into tears because I think it is so beautiful. So this is an easy 5 out of 5 stars, a really lovely reread. I listened to it in an audiobook this time around as well and really enjoyed it, so I really recommend. Then a trilogy that I managed to finish in September was the Emily Wilde series. So I read the third final book, which is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. And in this one we see her go to her colleague Wendell's fairy kingdom, which is actually set in Ireland, which is great. And basically she's trying to help him win his kingdom back from his evil stepmother, and now she's trying to get him kind of back his throne, but also secure his throne for him in a way that isn't going to put his life and everyone else's life in danger, and kind of try and break the tradition of the fairy monarchs coming in and killing all the members of their family and stuff like that, and kind of trying to make Wendell's reign a little bit different, and she's helping him with this, so she's really involved in this fake kingdom. And this was really fun to see in terms of her just more fairies and more fairy lore, but also living literally all the time in fairy, and how the effect of that is even on someone like Emily, who's very knowledgeable with fairies and knows how to kind of deal with them. We see how it affects her, and I really enjoyed reading this one. There's also a dog character in this book. He's a fairy dog character. His name is Shadow, and I've always pictured him as my dog Desi, because he's kind of this black retriever, kind of big black dog character. And we see him, he's kind of aging in this book. And I will say there's no pet deaths in this book, so don't be worrying. But we see kind of this side thing of him aging, and Emily noticing that he's aging and kind of coming to terms with the fact that he's not going to be around forever. And there's a scene with Shadow near the end of the book that actually I was in bits reading, because it just reminded me so much of Desi, who is 13 now. So I've also having to be dealing or starting to think about the fact that he is aging, and you're seeing those signs now that he's not going to be around forever, and within the next couple of years we might, that time is probably going to come. And it just hit home really hard for me, and it was beautifully done, beautifully written, but yeah, it was quite emotional for me as well. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. I think overall I did prefer the first Emily Wilde book out of all 3 of them, but I still really did enjoy this one. Then I read an author who's become an auto-read kind of favourite Regency romance author for me, and that is Sophie Irwin, and this was How to Lose a Lord in 10 Days. And in this one we are following, I think the character's name is maybe Lydia. I actually can't quite remember. We are following a female character who ends up getting this marriage proposal at the very start of the book by a guy called Lord Ashton. And she wouldn't be from like the wealthiest family, and she wouldn't necessarily have like the best prospects. So the fact that this lord would come and like ask for her hand in marriage is like really a really big deal, and she can't really say no. But she doesn't want to marry him because she doesn't love him, and she kind of finds out there's reasons why he would like to marry her that aren't necessarily, I wouldn't say not honourable, but like it's not like he doesn't love her, so like she doesn't want to marry him because of that. And she gets the chance to kind of go to his like a family location with him to kind of get to know him a little bit better for a while. I think it's for a week, for 10 days. And she decides she's going to use those 10 days to basically repulse him before their engagement is announced to Ton. She has 10 days to repulse him enough to break off the engagement, because it's better for him to break off the engagement than it is for her to do it. And basically, she has a lot more to lose than him in terms of breaking off the engagement. So we kind of see her do all these like really terrible things to embarrass him in front of his friends and family, to try and to get him to not want to marry her. But he's a lot more stubborn than she thinks, and he has his own reasons for wanting to marry her. So he ends up kind of doing the same back to her, and it is quite funny. So it is very much like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which is obviously where the title comes from. I really like Sophie Irwin's writing. I love her settings. I particularly love her cast of characters that she creates. So we have loads of different kind of friends and family characters that are all circling around each other for the 10 days. And I think she does it very well in terms of almost like a 4 weddings and a funeral type of vibe, where you get to know these characters coming in and out and their relationships and how they relate to everyone else, and the friendships and the fallouts and stuff like that, and you get quite invested in the like side characters as well as the main characters. So that's one of my favourite things about Sophie Irwin's writing, as well as I think she does a very good slow burn relationship as well. However, out of all the books I've read, I think this one is actually my least favourite. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and that's mostly because I just felt like I personally didn't feel the chemistry between the 2 main characters. I felt it was a little bit forced, and I felt like we were being told a lot of things rather than shown when it came to their feelings and their relationship. I just would have liked a lot more moments between them, in a way that I just felt was really lacking. I've had it in her other books. I felt was really lacking in this book, so it just wasn't my favourite one personally for me, but I know other people who really loved this one, so yeah. And then I ended up reading the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, which I have here. So the Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer. And I bought these after binge watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, like a lot of people. So it was like halfway through the 3rd season, and I was really looking forward to seeing how it all ended. And I was like, I want to read the book before the last few episodes are aired. And yeah, because obviously, like many, I was like a Conrad Fisher summer girly, and I was really disappointed in these books, and I actually liked the show a lot better. Now, I'm a really big To All the Boys I Loved Before fan. I love Lara Jean, I love Peter Kay. They're like my comfort reads, and I do reread them like when I need that little bit of comfort reading. I find them really good reads, and I was kind of hoping these would be the same, but they just weren't. I found Belly as a character, like in the show, she's quite annoying and juvenile and selfish. In the books, she is like 100 times worse, and I was just like, I just don't understand. I don't understand anything about why these boys would like her. She's not showing any signs of being an attractive person really to them, because like she acts like a brat for a majority of the books. And again, I felt like we were just being told all the time that like Conrad was into her, but I was like never really seeing actual signs that Conrad liked her. It was just, yeah, I just really didn't like these. I thought they were just quite, there was not a lot of substance in them, I think. And yeah, I felt like obviously the bones were there to make this good TV series, but in terms of books, they were just, yeah, they were really poor, and I was really disappointed in them because I really wanted to love them. and these were, it just wasn't it. So these are directly going on to an unhaul pile for me. So I was very disappointed in that because, as I said, I really enjoyed the show. And then I continued on with another fantastical kind of nature studious nature lady book, which is Voyage of the Basilisk, the memoirs of Lady Trent. So this is the third book in that series by Marie Brennan. And in this one we're following Lady Brennan, who is a dryadologist. That's what Emily Wilde is. Basically she studies dragons and she goes around the world. This is a lot more historical fantasy in terms of like alternate, or not historical fantasy, but more like alternate history with a little bit of fantasy in terms of that dragons exist, rather than Emily Wilde, which is a lot more like magical. And like I do feel like if you like Emily Wilde, you would probably like Lady Trent, but Emily Wilde has a lot of the whimsy and the cozy and the magic, obviously, with the fairies, where Lady Trent is a lot more like realistic in terms of like scholarly pursuits and what it means to be a lady within that field as well, a woman within that field, and to be limited in certain ways. And it's a lot more realistic in many ways, and except obviously the dragons don't exist as far as we know. Who knows, really. So this one we're following, she is obviously on the hunt for a kind of a basilisk, and she's on a kind of like this high seas adventure, and this time she also has her son with her, who's about like 9 or 10 I think in this book. So it's really nice to see her relationship with her son kind of get stronger in this book, and see how she's able to fit in being a mother as well as a scholar and an explorer and everything like that. And I really liked the other cultures they explore and the different kind of adventures they end up in. And I think I preferred this one to the second book, which I found a little bit dry in places. I know Lady Trent is quite a dry character. She's a very serious character. So there's times that her humour, she wouldn't have a lot of humour. But she can be a dry character to follow sometimes. But I still really did enjoy this one, and I gave this one a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I'll continue on with the series. Then another book in a series that I was reading, I read this one on audiobook, and that was again Rachel by Marian Keyes. And this audiobook was actually very fun because it was narrated by Marian Keyes herself. So again, Rachel is actually a follow-on to her Rachel's Holiday book, which would be the second book in the Walsh Sisters series. So you can read all the Walsh Sister series as standalones. You don't have to read them as a series. Each book just follows a different sister. So their stories kind of wind in and out of each other, but they all are separate, are standalones. But you would want to read Rachel's Holiday before reading again Rachel, because obviously they're following the same characters. And this one we are following Rachel, and it is like it's like 10 to 15 years after we originally followed her in Rachel's Holiday, where we see her struggling with addiction and she goes to a treatment centre for that. In this one, she is back in Ireland. She was living in New York. She's back in Ireland now, and she's back at the cloisters, but this time she's actually back as an employee. So she's now a therapist or a psychiatrist, and she is working one-on-one. She's like an addiction counsellor or addiction psychiatrist, and she's working one-on-one with other people who are addicted to different things. And it was really interesting to see her on the other side of that, from knowing what she was like in the first book and how she struggled in the cloisters and the things she did, and now we're seeing her on the other side, and seeing her deal with patients who were very similar to her in the first book. And we see that maturity, and we also see her own struggles, the fact that obviously addiction never just goes away. You live with addiction for the rest of your life, and you will struggle with it at different points in your life when you're going through hard times, sad times, ups and downs. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be a temptation. So we see how Rachel struggles with that as well. And we also see some really terrible things that happened in her life where she has struggled, she has relapsed, and how she has dealt with that. And we also see her relationship with Luke, who was her boyfriend in Rachel's Holiday, and we see their relationship, and we know we see their relationship in this book and what has happened between them, and how they're continuing forward with each other. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought there were some parts of it that were really, really sad. There are some trigger warnings which I will write down below just in case people don't want some necessary spoilers. I know people say content warnings and triggers aren't spoilers, but just in case people don't want to know, I won't say them, but I'll write them down below. But there are certain ones that I think if I didn't struggle with it. I mean, I definitely got emotional reading it, but I didn't struggle too much with it. But I don't know whether I would have read it so soon as terms around like pregnancy and children and stuff like that. And infertility. Yeah, I think I probably would have maybe put it off a little bit longer considering I was very newly postpartum reading this. But I still read it and it was fine. And I did get a little emotional at times, but I was okay reading it. But other people might not be. So I will put the specific content warnings around that down below. But I did enjoy this one. Just not my favourite Walsh sisters. And I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book I read in September was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore, which is a pen name obviously, but a very good one. And this one we are following a character who is kind of taking over her aunt's pumpkin spice cafe. Yeah, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe is actually what it's called. She's taking it over from her aunt who has decided to retire, and she's moved to this lovely little town called Dream Harbour, and she's gotten away from kind of she's like was an executive assistant in the city, and her boss died, basically like overworked himself to death, and she kind of got a shock about that, and so she's decided to take up her aunt's offer for this kind of slower, more relaxed lifestyle. And very quickly she meets a man called Logan, who is basically like Luke from Gilmore Girls. He's the local farmer. He's like Jackson, but he's actually Luke. He is the local farmer, and he has had some bad romantic relationships go bad quite publicly in the past. So he's very scared to take on another romantic relationship, but the two of them have chemistry like from the off, and they're kind of like ping-ponging around each other for a good portion of this book. And while also kind of seems that there might be someone in the town who's out to get the main character, and what is her name? The main character, Jeannie. And it seems like someone is out to get the main character, Jeannie, and potentially bring down the cafe. But this is very much like you see all the seasonal like activities, like the like just autumnal events and stuff, and it just seems like a really lovely series about this little town. It's very much like Stars Hollow, like it's very much based on Gilmore Girls or inspired by Gilmore Girls, and I'm not mad about that because I think series like that are just so lovely and cozy and just like a warm cup of tea that you need at certain times of the year. I know there's like seasonal books in this series, so I'm really looking forward to continuing on and reading them. So I'm going to try and read the second book by the end of November to get to the Christmassy book for December. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I did enjoy it. The only thing I will say is I thought their romantic relationship, their feelings there were very, very strong and very, very quickly in terms of like love, and I was like, I would have liked a few more conversations before they were kind of like, oh, I think I love this person. So yeah, but other than that, it was really good. And then if I go onto my October reading, so the first bit of October wasn't too spooky. The first one I read was a book I've had on my Goodreads to be read for a very long time, and eventually I decided I was going to read it and managed to get it on my library ebook app. And that was Cavendon Hall by Barbara Taylor Bradford. And basically, if you like Downton Abbey, this is written specifically for Downton Abbey fans because it's kind of like Downton Abbey. We are following the family of this place called Cavendon Hall, and we're also following kind of the servants as well, like the upstairs downstairs. It has that upstairs downstairs dynamic. It is 1913, so it's just before the start of the war, and we are seeing one of the characters, female characters, who is about to kind of have her debut like in London. She's the most beautiful sister of this family. They have all their high hopes for her that she is going to marry a duke because she's that beautiful that of course she would attract a duke. And there's a lot of hopes and like kind of expectations upon this girl, and we see at the start of the book something particularly tragic and quite shocking happens to her. So she I'll put up my hand if you don't want to know, you can skip forward. But at the start of the book, she suffers quite a brutal sexual assault. She gets raped, and she also gets pregnant as a result of that rape. So we see the family have to kind of struggle with that, and she herself struggles with that, and kind of what to do about that, because obviously the time of, like, it's 1913, you know, it's kind of the blame gets put on the woman for these kind of things a lot of the time, and she would be afraid that, like, it was very much like, oh my god, the family's reputation would be ruined, rather than poor Daphne, this terrible thing has happened to her. It was kind of like her reputation, the family's reputation is going to be ruined now. So she goes through this terrible thing, and the family have to figure out what to do next about this. And we also see that it appears that, like, there's sinister things happening afoot as well. Kind of like things are like the stables are set on fire at one point, and then a cousin, also an estranged cousin, comes back home, and we see them kind of have a family reunion as well, and it kind of goes on for like about a year, I say, not quite a year, but the story kind of is quick enough. But I will say it was kind of, in terms of the character Daphne, who suffered that a terrible thing, in terms of her bouncing back from that, was quite, like, not, I wouldn't say unrealistic, but like you would have a lot of like things you'd have to deal with after that, like mentally and like physically and stuff like that. Like, it would be very hard to just bounce back, and it does seem that she kind of does that, and I was like, I don't know like how realistic that is, but it was kind of just one of those ones that was just like really easy to read, and I just like enjoyed it for the whole kind of Downton Abbey feelings of it, and the upstairs downstairs kind of thing as well. I did quite enjoy. It is very much like, you know, the servants are so, like, they're so loyal to the family, like very, very loyal. Like, it's kind of like this real, like, kind of like blood is like this like blood bond almost between them all. And yeah, but I did enjoy it. I gave this like a 3 out of 5 stars. Like, it was like, it wasn't the best book I've ever read, but it wasn't the worst book either. But I do think I would go on and read the rest of the trilogy or series, just to kind of see what happens to the other sisters and to the other family members. I think it would be kind of one to pick up now and again, if I'm feeling kind of a kind of historical fiction like that, that's easy to read. So yeah. Then I continue with another series. If you can come tell, I'm trying to get through a lot of my series at the moment, because there was a lot that I kind of had left lingering, and if I don't force myself to continue, I won't. And I read Heartstone by CJ Sansom, and this is the 5th Shardlake book, and in this one we're following Matthew Shardlake, who is a lawyer in the Tudor era, so it's King Henry VIII's reign. He's married to Catherine Parr, so it's kind of the end of his reign now that we're seeing, where he's not in very good health, and he is basically employed to go and by actually Catherine Parr herself, so by the Queen. He's employed to look into the case of this young boy who was taken on as a ward by his father's business partner, and his parents died, and then his sister died, and now this boy has been looked after by this business partner, and this business partner's kind of taken over this boy's land and money, and they think that there's something weird afoot, basically, and the boy hasn't really been seen that much out and about. So Matthew is sent to check up on this and see like what the story is, like what is actually going on. And during this as well, the French are coming to attack England, so we see men being conscripted to war, and we also see I think it's like the Battle of Portsmouth, I think it is, the kind of the navy, the ships and stuff like that, and there's like this big battle in this book as well, which is kind of interesting. I didn't really know that much about that, so I did actually really like kind of some of those parts in terms of learning more about it. I do think it was kind of very obvious in this book what was going on, but it would be obvious to us as like modern readers. Where obviously for Matthew himself it probably wouldn't be so obvious. But I did enjoy this one. I always enjoy these books. I love Matthew as a character, And I did think there was a little bit too much back and forth. He kind of travels from where he's based to Portsmouth and back to Portsmouth and back again. And there was a lot of like back and forth and back and forth, back and forth in this book. That kind of irritated me a little bit. And I kind of thought got a little bit repetitive. And I do think it kind of got a little bit too long to get to the crux of what was going on with this boy. Well, as I said, it was kind of obvious, it would be obvious for the reader kind of what was probably going on. So yeah, not my favourite Twilight book, but still one that I did enjoy because I just really like this series. But CJ Sansom is a brilliant writer, so I did enjoy it, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Then I read a non-fiction, which was kind of like a mother parenting book, like early years parenting book, called Cribsheet by Oster. This is what I've seen kind of pop up a lot when I was looking at like baby books and parenting books in the early years, and it's like this data driven guide to that first year, or those first few years of having a child, and I'm really interested in reading it. And I don't know whether I had too high expectations for this book, but it just didn't really meet them, and I was left quite disappointed. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars in the end. She kind of goes through different things from like sleeping, feeding, weaning, it kind of gives you all these different kind of studies and the results of those studies and what is best and what is not best, and like kind of just gives you all this information. But for most part, now obviously she's not going to be like, you have to do this or you shouldn't do this, or but basically I felt like everything was like very inconclusive, and she was basically like, oh well, at the end of the day you just do what feels right. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, but I wouldn't be reading this book if I didn't want to kind of have a bit more of a firm idea of what I was wanting to do, or like to get like some sort of firmer guidance, I guess, in terms of what I want to do or what would be the best way to do it. And there's no point in like reading a book and then just saying, oh well, you just do whatever you want to do. And it's just, I don't know, I just found it not that actually that helpful. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars, and was disappointed in this one. And then I had a little bit of a Halloween reading vlog, which will probably be out before this video. So even though I've had so many issues with vlog footage because my mobile phone footage, when it goes into Premiere Pro, it just goes all like shaky, even though it's not shaky when it's being played on the computer. It's only when it's in Premiere Pro, and I don't know how to fix it. So my vlogs have not been good, so I'm trying to figure out a way around that, because obviously I'm going to be using my phone for vlogs, but maybe I'll just have to use the camera when I'm doing a vlog. I don't know. I'm going to try and figure out a way around it. But I did this Halloween vlog, and I talked about all these books in that vlog, so I won't talk about them too much here. The first book I read was Scarlet Widow by Masterton. And this is historical fiction, kind of mystery / horror. We're following a character called Beatrice Scarlet. She emigrates to America in the 1700s. Her husband is a preacher, and basically really weird things start happening in their village. Like their pigs all get slaughtered, fish like rise up from the river like floating. There's like hoofs like buried into the hoof prints buried to the ground, so everyone thinks it's the devil. Beatrice thinks it's probably more of a human person masquerading as the devil, but she's a woman. People don't really listen to her, but she is also an apothecary's daughter, so she actually has knowledge of like certain chemical properties and stuff like that, and like kind of medicines and stuff, and like science, because she has like a sciencey brain in that sense, and she starts looking into things. This was like I kind of said during the vlog, it was horrific in some parts in terms of how certain things were written, but it was easy to read and it flowed really well. And then there were some like passages that were quite horrific in terms of descriptions and stuff, and you could see that kind of horror coming through. But then there is basically like a really, really brutal and unnecessary rape scene in this, and the description, the author decides to go into this rape scene. I was like, this is so unnecessary. Like, why do we even need this? I don't even think the rape scene needs to be in there. It's just gratuitous, and yeah, it just really put me off the whole thing. So yeah, because of that, I ended up giving this like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It just, yeah. Then I read Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, which is a beautiful, cosy, fantasy, witchy novel. We're following a character called Belladonna Blackthorn, who, when she turns 30, has to kind of go through this retrial of her witchcraft. And she is basically tasked with completing these, I think it's like certain tasks within her spell book before Halloween to kind of keep her magic. Because, according to her coven, they don't think that she'd been using her magic well enough to be able to keep it. And now they're like, well, if you complete all these tasks, then you can keep your magic. So she has to go and find a tutor who will help her kind of hone her magic skills, where she is kind of let real life, just kind of take a hold of her, and kind of the drudgery of real life and lack of self-confidence and belief in herself affect her and her magic as well. And we kind of see her kind of come back to herself and regain all this confidence and kind of believe in herself again. And it's really, really lovely. And I just really enjoyed this one. You kind of, I think it dragged a little bit in the middle, but overall, as a cozy, witchy book, it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. We'll read more from this series. The third book has just been announced, so I need to read the second book maybe during the year in time for the third book next September. And one of the things this has done actually is made me go back and watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch, because if you like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, you would love this book. So and I have also given this book to a friend to read, which is why I don't have my physical copy of it. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. And an audiobook I read at the end of October was The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose, which is the third book in the Molly the Maid trilogy. And this one we're following Molly as she's getting ready for her wedding. Something crazy happens in terms of old knick-knack she has had lying around her apartment. Ends up being worth quite a lot of money, but then it gets stolen and she gets dragged into this mystery of what has happened to this egg that she had. And also she ends up finding a diary that belonged to her granny, who is kind of like this unseen character for all of the books, because she died before the book started, but she was a really big person in Molly's life, like a real guiding force in her life. And we see her, we finally learn about her grand's past and who her grand really was. And this one was cute. I think if you like the trilogy as a whole, if you like Molly, you are going to like this book, because it's just kind of a nice little rounds the whole trilogy up and then ties it in a neat little bow. I do think the mystery was probably the weakest out of all 3 of the books, and I do think out of all 3 of the books, the second book was actually my favourite. But Molly herself is just a very adorable character. I always say if you like Only Murders in the Building, you'd probably like this book because of the New York setting and the big grand historic building of the hotel that Molly works in as well. It's kind of similar. And I always listen to these in audiobook as well, which are really good. I really recommend. Then I continued my tradition of trying to read a Stephen King book every October for the last few years, and this year I picked up Carrie, which is one of his first books. And one that I've always been really interested in reading. So we're following a character called Carrie, who is really, really badly bullied in school, and we kind of see that she has these kind of telekinetic powers that ends up kind of becoming a real force of destruction because of how she's treated by everyone around her, and it just ends up in tragic circumstances for everyone involved, really. This was, short to the point, which in later Stephen King books, you don't get as much. He always kind of gets a bit lengthier as he goes on with his writing. But I do like his writing a lot. I like the way he describes things, and there's a little kind of an author's note at the start of this book in terms of who there's people in his life when he was a child or a teenager, girls who inspired Carrie later on, when he was thinking about this kind of girl, and that kind of made me feel sad with the fact that there were these girls who were like lonely and bullied and in these kind of family situations or social situations where things just weren't great for them, and they would inspire someone as just luckless as Carrie. But I enjoyed it, and I'll see what I will read next year. We did watch the movie of his book, The Long Walk. We watched the movie there Halloween week, And we were left very disappointed, very a mid movie, in our opinion. So I would like to know what you think if you've read that movie. Or read that movie. If you watched that movie, what did you think of it? And then the last book I finished was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is one that I've seen quite a lot over the last few years when I rewatched to read. I really, really enjoyed this book. This is kind of a alternate tale on the alternate tale of the wives of Dracula. We are following a character called Constanta, who is saved from death by someone who we presume is Dracula. And she becomes obviously part of the undead, the forever living, and she becomes his wife, and she's completely enthralled by him. She loves him so much. She does everything he says. He brings her around the world. He looks after her, but we also see the power imbalance of their relationship, whereas basically everything he says is the law. And we see him bring more kind of wives into the relationship, and they all kind of lose so much of themselves as they become part of him. And we see them struggle with that and start seeing that really they are at his mercy, and at any point he can decide that he doesn't need them anymore and he can get rid of them just like that, and they need to figure out a way to escape his power. And this is sexy, it's salacious, romantic, you have a bit of polyamory in it, some LGBTQIA representation, but it's just dark and romantic and soulful, and I just thought the writing of this was so good. The relationship building was brilliant, the atmosphere was good, the blood dripping kind of darkness, it wasn't too bad, but it was just perfect. It was very Interview with the Vampire and Dracula, that kind of atmosphere, and really, really enjoyed it. That is everything I have read in September and October. Let me know what you guys think. If you've read anything good this autumn. If you have any Stephen King books in particular to recommend for me to try and find for next year, let me know as well. I would love to know. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.